So today we shall discuss Strawson's well-known article called Intention and Convention in Speech Acts. This article of Strawson is a commentary on some of the ideas Austin introduced in his famous Speech Act theory. The paper of Strawson starts with the comment that he wants to raise few questions about Austin's idea of illocutionary force and illocutionary act. So this paper is a philosophical commentary on Austin's philosophy of language with special reference to these two ideas, namely illocutionary force of an utterance and illocutionary act which a speaker performs. So before getting into Strawson's analysis of Austin, let us be clear about Austin's own ideas of illocutionary act and illocutionary force. Briefly speaking, Austin first makes a distinction between locutionary act and illocutionary act. What does Austin mean by locutionary act? Austin defines locutionary act as the act of saying something in its normal sense. So the act of saying something is called a locutionary act by Austin. So whenever a speaker says something in its normal sense, the speaker could be said to perform a locutionary act. Now, while explaining this idea of locutionary act, Austin draws our attention to threefold distinction between what he calls phonetic act, phatic act, and rhetoric act. So Austin distinguishes between phonetic act, the phatic act, and the rhetoric act. The phonetic act consists in merely uttering certain noises, any noise, okay? So making any noise whatsoever would be called a phonetic act by Austin. The phatic act, on the other hand, is the act of uttering certain vocables or words. Now, we all know that all noises are not words. Okay? Only some specific kinds of noises are called words. And these words belong to a vocabulary of a language. So, all phatic acts in this sense are phonetic acts, but not all phonetic acts are phatic acts. What about the rhetoric act? The rhetoric act is the performance of an act of using these words, which are part of a vocabulary, with a certain sense and reference. So when the speaker makes certain sounds that constitute the vocabulary of a language, and when the speaker makes these sounds with more or less definite sense and reference, that kind of act is called rhetoric act. So, what is the distinction between phatic act and rhetoric act? Phatic act consists in uttering words which are part of a particular language. Now, when a sequence of words is uttered with the intention of expressing certain sense and certain reference, then and then alone that act performed by the speaker could be called a rhetoric act according to Austin. Right? So this is the distinction that Austin makes between phonetic act, phatic act and rhetoric act. Okay. So now let's get back to the idea of locutionary act vis-a-vis illocutionary act. As we have said little while ago, according to Austin, to say something in its ordinary usual sense is to perform a locutionary act. But Austin argues that by performing a locutionary act, we can also perform another kind of act which Austin calls illocutionary act. Notice one thing. Austin is explaining all these in terms of actions. These are all acts. These are all different kinds of acts that a speaker could be said to perform. So these are all actions. So one kind of action is called locutionary act, and by performing this locutionary act, the speaker performs another kind of act that Austin calls Illocutionary Act. How do we make sense of this distinction between Locutionary Act and Illocutionary Act? Now, Locutionary Act simply means saying something, okay? Saying something in and through language. So uttering a sentence, okay, would be a locutionary act. But by uttering a sentence, which is a locutionary act, the speaker performs some other kinds of acts as well, like asking a question or answering a question or giving some information or warning somebody or announcing a verdict or an intention. So, or pronouncing a sentence when the judge pronounces the verdict of the case, particular case that he deals with, or making an appointment, or a criticism. So all these are called, according to Austin, illocutionary acts. Asking or answering a question, giving some information or an assurance or a warning, announcing a verdict, etc. So, what is the relation between locutionary act and illocutionary act? When we perform a locutionary act, obviously we use speech, because to say something in its ordinary sense is to use an expression of a language. So locutionary act stands for using a speech. But in what way precisely are we using the speech on a particular occasion? An answer to this question would lead us to what Austin calls illocutionary act. Okay? And it is important to note that the distinction between different kinds of illocutionary acts are extremely important in our everyday use. Whether somebody is advising you or merely suggesting you or ordering you or promising you, these are extremely important things in our day-to-day life. So whether somebody is ordering me or somebody is requesting me is very important to the hearer. So the distinction between different kinds of illocutionary acts is something that we should take note of according to Austin. So, understood this way, illocutionary act is performed in saying something as opposed to performance of an act of saying something. This is a very interesting distinction Austin draws in order to explain the difference between locutionary act and illocutionary act. How do we perform locutionary act? We perform locutionary act in saying something. We use certain expression, okay, in saying something, okay. But then in saying something, in using that expression, I also perform an act of, say, suggesting or ordering or, you know, requesting, etc., etc. So by performing locutionary act, we also perform an illocutionary act, act of something, act of ordering, act of requesting, act of, you know, suggesting, etc., etc. So there is in saying something and of saying something. In saying a sentence, in performing a locutionary act, we also talk of something, of suggesting or of ordering or of requesting, etc. Okay, so the in something stands for locutionary act, of something stands for illocutionary act. Austin also distinguishes between what he calls illocutionary force, illocutionary force and meaning. This is important. Austin distinguishes between the illocutionary force of an expression and the meaning of an expression. This distinction is something which Strawson also has commented on. Austin says, I want to distinguish force and meaning. Force means illocutionary force, and meaning in the sense in which meaning is equivalent to sense and reference. So what is the distinction between illocutionary force and meaning? When the speaker performs an illocutionary act, say ordering, okay, now the hearer hears the utterance, okay. So this illocutionary act of ordering produces a force in the hearer's mind, whereby the hearer follows the order. Okay? So illocutionary act produces a force in the mind of the hearer to act accordingly. This is what is called illocutionary force. But this is different from the meaning of the expression. Meaning in the sense, Austin understands meaning in terms of sense and reference. Okay? So just understanding meaning of an expression does not amount to producing illocutionary force, because the hearer might not be able to detect whether the illocutionary act performed by the speaker is an order, or is a request, or just stating a fact. The hearer might not be in a position to understand this. For example, you ask me something, and we are talking about, traveling somewhere, etc., etc. And I said, well, but this will, we have to be paid. This will amount to paying some extra charge. Now, when I use this expression, the hearer might understand me as stating a fact. This will, I have to pay something extra for this. Or the hearer might also understand it as a request that you please pay the extra charge. So you see, understanding the meaning of the expression does not necessarily amount to understanding the illocutionary force. The same expression could be taken by somebody as an order, by somebody else as a request, by somebody else as a statement of a fact. So this is why Austin is making a distinction between the illocutionary force of an expression and the meaning of an expression. So we have got Locutionary Act, we have got Illocutionary Act, we have got Illocutionary Force. Now Austin introduces another idea, namely Perlocutionary Act. Perlocutionary Act. There is yet another sense in which to perform a locutionary act and therein an illocutionary act may also be to perform an act of another kind. So the speaker performs a locutionary act. By performing the locutionary act, the speaker also performs the illocutionary act, and by performing illocutionary act, the speaker could be said to perform another act which is called perlocutionary act. What is this perlocutionary act? Saying something will often produce certain consequential effects upon the feelings, thoughts, or actions of the audience. For example, when a politician, gives a speech, he is performing a locutionary act. By performing a locutionary act, he is also performing an illocutionary act. But then by performing an illocutionary act, the speaker also wants to sway the emotions of the audience. Okay, so of the feelings, of the the speaker wants to influence the mental life, so to say, of the audience. So this is called perlocutionary act. So the speaker not only utters an expression, she is also, by uttering the expression, she is also requesting, ordering, etc. But by requesting, ordering, etc., she is also trying to influence the emotions, okay, the thoughts, the actions of the audience, right? And this is called perlocutionary act. And performing this perlocutionary act could be quite intentional. In most of the political speeches, the speaker wants to control your emotion. Okay, the speaker consciously wants to influence your emotion, your thoughts. So, performance of an act of this kind is called by Austin performance of perlocutionary act. Okay? He has given some examples to illustrate the distinction between locutionary act, illocutionary act, and perlocutionary act. Locutionary act means just, saying something. Shoot her, okay, kill her, something like that. This is a locutionary act. But by performing this locutionary act, the speaker could be said to, advise or order the audience to shoot the person. Okay. And so this is illocutionary. And the third is, the speaker also could be said to persuade, influence the audience to kill or to shoot her. So this persuasive aspect that is raised, that is born in the mind of the hearer, is the effect of the illocutionary act that the speaker has performed. So this is called perlocutionary act. So saying something and then ordering and then persuading. Okay? See, this is how Austin distinguishes between these three. He said that ... This is locutionary act. I mean, this could be, this is how one could describe the locutionary act. What would be the illocutionary act? He argued. So arguing is an example of an illocutionary act. And the third is perlocutionary act. He convinced me. So convincing is a perlocutionary act. So saying something is a locutionary act. Arguing is an illocutionary act, and convincing is a perlocutionary act. So this is how Austin distinguishes between these three kinds of acts: locutionary, illocutionary, and perlocutionary.